Yada yada. Oh yeah. Some new music. Hope your day, night, morning, evening, whatever it is going well. Hey, well, let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about a few things. So we're gonna get into some areas that I'm not gonna lie, I'm not particularly um knowledgeable on. I'm not gonna sit here and lie like other people might, or boast about things that I know no knowledge about. But hey, how you doing? What's going on? First we're gonna talk about two things tonight. One, um, everything that's going on with the Tesla stuff, with people setting Tesla dealerships on fire, cars and whatnot on fire, which I think is extremely ridiculous. Then we'll get into a little bit of the tariffs. Um, so if you don't know or not, everybody in the imaginary world of Twitter is upset at Elon because they think and I'll do the quotes like our guys on the Monty show do, they think he's a Nazi. Um, Look, man, I mean, I'm of German descent. My great grandfather and grandmother came over after World War One. Excuse me. And Nazism is not taken lightly on if you're German. Whether you live in Germany or are a descendant of Germans, it is not something that you really ignore or I guess I don't want to say would not want to deal with, but it's something like it's not something that German people are proud of and should be proud of. But at the same time, the term is used so loosely now that it's almost become when people call white people crackers. It's just become this term now that if you just don't like an individual and they're white, then the first thing you say is Nazi. Now, to me, uh, I mean, if anybody ever called me a Nazi, I just laugh because I know who I am. I'm not a Nazi. I could give a damn. This might shock people. I could give a damn about race. I'm not worried if you're white or black. I could get or yellow, green, purple, orange, pink, teal, invisible, whatever. That's who you are. That's who you are. Fantastic. But at the same time, I don't need it pushed in my face, just like you don't need me being white pushed in your face. Sex wise, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, or if you were a man that claims now to be a woman, or you were a woman that now claims to be a man. I might not understand, but at the same time, hey, be you. Be you, but don't put it in my face as I won't put it in yours. I'm one of those people that to each their own, live and let live type thing. But the minute you start forcing that crap in my face, I might react, just as you should if I did it to you. So we can get that out there. I don't give a damn your race, sex, religion, whatever, man. Whatever, live your life, do your thing. But hey, and again, I'm a moderate when it comes to politics. I try to see both sides of the situation, and that's how I vote. I vote for people that make sense to me, and vote for people that seem to be somewhat sane. And I know that gets hard every year, especially in this world. But um, have I voted mostly for Republicans in my life? Yeah, I have, because it's fit more of my values as far as what I believed in. Now, I will say this. I have not voted since I think the last time I voted was 2008. And a lot of people might be sitting there and saying, "Well, how can you tell us anything about politics? You haven't voted." Yeah, that's fair. But at the same time, I grew up around a lot of politicians from both Republicans, Democrats, and even some independents, and I have to tell you, they're all full of shit. They all are. And you can sit there and be excited that you are a part of this party or a part of that party, but both of them have great individuals that just want to do things for their constituents, for the people they represent, for their community, and for their country. They want that's the best for them. But then there's a lot of them, and it's on both sides, that are just out for themselves. And especially in today's world where they can make it all about them, it's become less about politics and more about an individual. And that's what I hate about politics, especially these days. And that's why I tend to not vote. I'll vote locally for different laws or for different maybe tax referendums or anything like that that come up. But as far as on a national level, I just don't get involved. I subtract myself from that situation because it's just a bunch of bull honky. And until the public settles the f down and realizes that we are having a bunch of idiots pushed in our face for power. It's not for actually what they believe in, it's just for power. And start putting actual people that should be there to represent us, both sides, Republicans and Democrats. It's just a monkey show. It's just a circus and monkey show. It's just there's no point. So having said that, the left, you guys are really showing the country why people shouldn't vote and don't want to vote for you. Again, to just throw Nazism out on somebody just because you're mad that they're in power or they're in charge when you have no basis or no acknowledgement or no proof that they are actual Nazis, it's not going to help your cause. And then to go out in the case with Elon and just start burning their cars. This is just happening, as you see, 14 minutes ago in Las Vegas, setting dealerships on fire because you don't agree with him politically. Uh, I mean, that's terrorism. E- there was a time in the 60s, and you can go back and look at this, where you had the weathermen. They were bombing not voter, draft boards and draft facilities of people that are places that were forcing people to join the Vietnam War, and they were blowing them up, and most of the time they were empty, but sometimes they started crossing the line and there were actual people in there, and people were getting hurt and killed. It's when you cross that line of associating things with either certain individuals or certain parties to where you're trying to harm individuals that most of the nation cannot back you up on. And now you might say, well, this isn't harming anybody. This is just harming Elon in his pockets. Well, for a group of people that are environmentalists and are all about the big green deal and wanting to make the world more eco-friendly, what the hell is the point of setting eco-friendly cars on fire and then causing massive pollution with chemicals that those cars were built by, not to mention the batteries, into the atmosphere? I mean, I'll wait and see if you can give me a great answer on that, because to me that's just moronic. So I'll wait. Okay, good. You didn't have an explanation because you're probably an effing idiot. But look, it's okay to disagree with the way the country's being run. That happens every election. That's happened every election, not just in the United States, but everywhere around the world. That they don't like whoever was in charge. They have the little protests. They go out in the streets, and guess what happened? Life went on. Life goes on. We've been through a Trump administration before, and guess what happened? Life, finds a way. We went through 4 years of Biden, and guess what? Life, finds a way. And during that time period, it is rather funny to me, and you will see people start to notice this. And again, this has to go with just how the Democrats run their system and run their campaigns. When the Republicans lose, and everybody will point to January 6th, I won't argue against January 6th on you. You had a lot of idiots that were doing things on Capitol Hill that they shouldn't have been. Um, it's granted. But over those 4 years of Biden being president, you didn't have Republicans burning Democrat owned businesses or protesting in the streets, causing havoc in major cities because they didn't like the way things were being operated or run. Most of America just went on with their lives. They might have bitched about it online, they might have been in public saying things to certain individuals that they didn't agree with, but life went on. The fact that both times, and maybe it changes if it's a different Republican that is a president, but I don't think it will because I think that's just how far the left has gone. That if they don't get their way, that they just throw fits to the point that they cry in the streets and they play victim and then they burn eco-friendly cars or eco-friendly businesses because they believe the person is a Nazi and they don't agree with them. I mean, that's showing the world, you know, showing us up. I mean, good job there. You can't just because your candidate lost become a defunct baby, become an idiot baby, and cause traffic jams in the streets or stand in highways and stop people who are just trying to live their life or burn facilities and vehicles and whatever because you're mad at the situation and act like that's a good form of protest and people are going to agree with you. The only people that are going to agree with you are the ones that are going to end up in jail with you. And I think I saw somewhere like it's like you face up to 20 years in jail. Now, will you stay 20 years in jail? Probably not. I mean, I'll probably only get 5 and I'll have to pay a certain amount of money back depending on where they are and what judge they get. But this is just ludicrous. I mean, if you think that Elon is a Nazi, then do what normal people would do or do what journalists do. Do sleuth work. Find something that you can connect to him, a video, uh, some sort of recording. So I'd preferably say a video because no one will believe the recording these days. You know, some sort of document that has some sort of proof that says that, you know what, he's a Nazi and he loves Nazism. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of bullshit. And it's not going to get you anywhere except in jail or just being made look, having more people pushed away from you because this isn't the way that, if you wanted to protest at a Tesla facility, stand out there saying Elon's a Nazi, don't buy his cars, this or that, people would understand you more. But the minute that you start destroying businesses, the minute that you start destroying companies because you believe that they're Nazis without any proof, is going to push people away from you. And the other thing is I saw this tweet out there where, and granted, with vehicles and homes and whatever, when you register them with your state or with your county, it's public knowledge, so anybody can, which is kind of scary, can find out where you live, or where that vehicle, parks at night. But you have people now that are basically what they say doxing, putting websites out there that show where Tesla owners are, where individuals are. And I've seen some people say that, well, what does it matter? Because if you drive a car, people are going to know that you're a Tesla driver. Well, yeah, they are, but they're not going to follow you home. They're not going to decide that they should go down the streets and find homes that have Teslas and burn them, which you might have people that do that. This is dangerous, putting this information out there for people to go. One, you're inciting violence. You're encouraging people to find these individuals and destroy their privately owned vehicle that they're paying for with their own money. Um, Secondly, you might end up getting somebody killed, and it might not be the Tesla owner. That Tesla owner might own a gun and might hear something going on and step outside and just start spraying and take somebody out. This is where social media and this is where Twitter, I think, is proving that we are becoming a dumber species because it allows idiots to have a voice when beforehand idiots' voices were muted or weren't that loud, but we've basically given a megaphone to morons and dipshits and idiots to go online and promote violence, promote hatred, promote lies, promote propaganda. And that's not just from one side, that's from every side. And it's almost sad to see. That's why I barely spend any time on social media because it is just a mess. It is a complete just travesty of human nature. But to do this stuff to allow people to find out where certain vehicle people own live, and to encourage to go to their place and destroy their vehicle or spray paint it or do whatever. Like there's videos out there of people doing that in public, like walking up to people's cars and spray painting swastikas on it. And I saw this one person saying like she's never seen more swastikas in her life and never expected it being in America. And the funny thing is the ones that are spraying it are these leftists. The ones that are putting these swastikas everywhere are these leftists that are going up to vehicles or going up to different areas and spray painting this crap because they're trying to say that Elon or that certain Republicans are Nazis. It's not the right doing it. Do you have Nazis in this country? Yeah, there's been unfortunately Nazi parties in this country since before World War II. They were always small. They were always um, all these groups are normally watched by the FBI. But they're small in nature. They're not something that you're going to see just randomly walking around every day, spray painting and tagging swastikas around. That's not how it works. But people online will make you think that every other white person in this country is a Nazi. And that is delusional, and those people need to have their heads checked, because I would out of this entire country, the 100% of this country, there may be 2% of people that recognize themselves or acknowledge themselves as Nazis in public will walk around and actually agree or say that they're Nazis. You're not gonna. It's just not a thing. It's not the reality here. And I'm sure there's gonna be some people going, "Oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. There's hundreds of thousands or millions of them." There's not. It's just not there. Um, do you have people that will probably more look it up now because of social media and the way? Yeah. And if you're providing this pushback of saying that certain individuals are Nazis when they're not, you start encouraging those individuals. Well, if that's what you think I am, then that's what I'm going to be. And it's a dangerous game that we're playing these days. If you want to protest, if you don't agree with an administration, if you don't agree with what somebody is saying, then yeah, do it. But do it in a way that's not going to damage, that's not going to maim, that's not going to harm anybody. That stuff doesn't get you anywhere except for in jail, dead, and it pushes people away from your cause. The more violent a cause gets, the less people want to be a part of it. That is just throughout history. That is how it goes. The more violent and the more insane it gets, the more people walk away from an individual cause. And doing this, allowing people or telling people to go and find individuals so you know where they live and you can destroy their car, is part of the lunacy that you're beginning to see from that side of the country and that side of politics. Um, there were some others of it looked like in I know in Los Angeles, in Vegas, and I think in a few other cities, people were just burning Teslas. And I've seen a lot of people, and again, this makes me laugh too, where people bought Teslas because they are all about helping the environment. Um, and so they bought the electronic car, which I mean, we can get into the whole, what's needed for the batteries of the vehicles and how it's actually more harmful than it does help. But I mean, overall, they wanted to do what they thought was good. So they bought a Tesla to help the environment or better the environment, make themselves feel good. And if you're having a lot of people trade their cars in, which I think a lot of these cars like 50 grand, so they're not cheap. Trade their cars in, or they're selling their cars because they believe Elon is a Nazi. And whatever, if that's what you want to do, that's your prerogative. It's your car, it's your vehicle, it's whatever. I think on some level, you've bitten off, the crazy stick. You found that candy bar that was just full of lunacy and swallowed it without even thinking what it was. But I mean, that's your thing. But this is where this is where America, the portion, I won't say all because it's a small portion. This is where a small portion of America is just, they're getting ridiculous. This needs to stop. Um, I didn't agree with people running up at the Capitol on January 6th, going in. And granted, videos came out and showed a lot of them were just idiots that ran through there and screamed and yelled and walked through, escorted out or just walked out, and that was it. But you did have the ones that were there to damage. You did have the ones that were trying to do malicious stuff. I mean, you had individuals that weren't in the right mind as far as what they wanted to do. Just as you have these individuals here that aren't in the right mind. These are the individuals that need to be taken out. And I don't mean in a way, a violent way. I mean like just in society. They need to be removed from society and either put in jail or, hell, if not from this country, just deport them, which is another thing. A lot of people are calling Trump and his administration Nazis because they're deporting people and they're doing things that they don't agree with, and they say it's akin to what the Germans did in the late 30s into the 40s. Okay, so history is a very important thing because you learn from it. The problem is the way each individual learns from it is drastically different than from how an individual might learn from it. And I say that regarding I might see history a certain way, an understanding of it. Somebody right next to me might see a completely different aspect or an understanding of it. The person right next to them might see a completely different aspect. So my understanding, again, this is just mine, is that when the Nazis took over, they blamed the Jews of Germany and of Europe mostly of the problems of that continent. They then rounded up Jews and gypsies and other minorities, gays, um, disabled, and so on. And if they didn't kill them then, they sent them to camps and then were killed there. That's my understanding of what the Nazis did. So Trump is just gathering people to deport them back to their countries because they are illegal. Illegal. Um, he's not killing them. He's not sending them to camps. They're going either back to their naturalized home where they came from, or for the most part, if they're being held, they're being held in containment or confinement, jail, whatever you want to call it, before they're sent home. Again, they're not being killed. Um, the acts that they've done haven't been anything that has warranted anybody in this country to kill anybody. Hasn't been anything warranted to round people up. Hasn't been anything warranted to suppress or keep people from doing things. Um, Everyday life still goes on. I mean, people can still get up and complain about the price of eggs being too high. People can get up and complain about the economic situation or whatever. But I mean, you can get in your car right now and decide to drive across the country, and no one's going to stop you. Hell, no one will probably even ask why, except for your family. Um, you could get on a plane right now if you wanted to and fly to another country, and nobody would really ask why or care. Well, they might ask why because they just want to know why you're flying to another country, what you're doing, but they're not going to stop you or they're not going to shoot you before you get to the plane. You could decide to walk into a completely different county in your state, and nobody will tell you not to. Nobody will stop you and ask for papers. Most people probably won't even acknowledge that you are walking. You just can. So I don't know how uh, that makes us, this country and the leadership Nazis. But again, maybe that's just my interpretation of history. Maybe mine's wrong. Maybe I should have seen it like everybody else or the other people are seeing it. Do I agree with everything that President Trump has done? No, I didn't like the way he treated Zelensky, and I really did not like either the way him and Vance treated Zelensky. I personally, I'm all fine. I'm for more Russians being killed. I mean, just waste away on the Russian army. You know, if they want to keep that meat grinder going to where they're losing more and more of their people since they started the war, I'm all for it. I was not a fan of how Trump treated him. I understand Trump wants to end the war, which is fine. He's trying to make a name for himself. That's what he wants to do. That's fine. But at the same time, I'm all for economies getting blown away. That does not bother me one iota. I don't like the amount of money that was being sent over. I mean, I think most people can agree with that. I think there were some things that we shouldn't have sent as much money as we did over there. But we have to stop calling individuals names just because it fits your political smear campaign. And this goes into, remember, like a lot of the Democrats before the election, that's all they would do. They were um, saying Trump's a Nazi. He's a this. He's a that. But the minute he got nominated, they all stopped calling him that. And they still aren't calling him that. There might be one or two that are calling him that at the moment, maybe a few more, but the majority of them stopped. If you, as a Democrat voter, don't find that funny or don't find that questionable or wonder, wait a minute, why did my party convince me he was a Nazi, but then he was voted in and now they aren't calling him that anymore and they're actually working with him to do things for this country? What does that tell me? That should tell you a lot about your party. That should make you question a little bit about your party. If I'm a registered Republican, but again, I vote whatever way makes sense to me, whether they're Republican, Democrat. If they have the better knowledge or it makes some sense to me what they're doing or what they're standing up for, I'm voting for them. If I was a Republican and I had my party screaming and yelling about, um, well, well, and a lot of this happened with Obama, which wasn't big at that time, but it was a whole he wasn't a naturalized citizen, and yeah, that's always been seen as a conspiracy theory, and that was one of those where it was like, Jesus, I mean, I didn't pay any attention to that, and it was one of those things. It was like, just shut up. If you don't have actual proof, if you can't find any proof, if um, the American government says that he's naturalized or can't find any proof that he's not naturalized, you have to move on from it. Just as if there's no proof that Trump and Elon are Nazis, you can't find any proof, no documents, no video, no nothing. You have to move on from it because it's probably not true and it's probably just some made up propaganda bullcrap because people are whiny bitches and they just want to complain and whine about stuff. The other thing I tell you, if you spend more than 15 minutes on Twitter a day or social media in general, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, if you spend more than 15 minutes, please check yourself in somewhere or take your phone and throw that bitch in the water because it is making you unhealthy. It is making you severely unhealthy. Find a book, go outside, hell, play a video game, watch some stupid show you used to watch back in the days. Don't waste your time on this. But we have to stop this nonsense of if we don't get our way, we just start burning people's stuff. This is where it's getting a little ridiculous. Now we're going to move to tariffs. And as I'm saying this, my vast experience with tariffs is zero. It's just a little school learning. Now, from my understanding with tariffs, it's the tax products, and again, I could be wrong, that are coming into your country. Every country has tariffs on other countries. It's always been that way. And normally that is to, I think, level or minimalize like the cost of what would affect on your own natural goods or your own natural products. So if you're bringing certain products in, it won't raise the the cost of your home products. Um, and I could be wrong on that. But I did Google tariffs for an explanation, so we're going to get into this. And here we go. A tariff is essentially a tax imposed by a government on imported goods, typically calculated as a percentage of the value of imported goods. Here's a detailed explanation. Definition: a tariff is a tax levied by a government on imported taxes and is often used to protect domestic industries, raise revenue, or as a tool in trade negotiations. How it works. And when a company imports goods, they pay the tariff to the government, which increases the cost of the imported good. Purpose: tariffs can be used for various reasons, including protecting domestic industries by making imported good more expensive. Tariffs can help domestic partners compete. Raising revenue. Tariffs can be a source of income for the government because you're taxing it. Negotiating leverage, of course. I mean, we don't have to explain that when it's used to negotiate. The impact: tariffs can lead to higher prices for consumers as businesses pass on the costs of tariff. Okay, so that's when they're buying these products. If they're more expensive because of the tariff on it, then yet they then have to raise the price of their selling goods. It's understandable. Reduces trade. A tariff can make more expensive to import goods, potentially leading to a decrease in international trade, of course. Trade wars, which, retaliate with their own tariffs, which, I mean, we're kind of in right now with a few of the countries. Um, I'll be honest, and I'm going to say this before because I went to Gork and I asked Gork, which is so great for where we are in the world, is to ask AI, a machine, questions. But I asked him about Trump's tariffs and how are they good for the United States. So if I had to put my hat on as far as Trump's thinking, I think this is where his thought process is. So inflation has been extremely high for the last 3 or 4 years, which has caused the price of goods to shoot up. A lot of that goes back to COVID, to when a lot of industries were shut down, supplies could not get in, and it was causing a lot of issues on the supply chain. To where, remember, you had an uptick of supplies or of cost on supplies at first, but then when they started allowing the products to come in, you saw a drop on the consumer goods because now you had more goods in the stores, and you had a lot less people buying them because they were worried about being out in public. Because I remember I was going to the grocery store and I was maybe spending 60, $70 on all my groceries at that time. Now it's $30 or $40 higher. It's almost, 100, and that's just for me. I'm a single dude, so don't freak out if you're going, how's he only paying 100? It's just me. All right, I don't have anybody else to worry about, so let's not freak out. Um, and then with inflation, you've just had prices go up, and I think that's still an effect from COVID and maybe other things as well that I'm not very knowledgeable on. So I think Trump's and maybe his people's thought process on this is, and this is just way out of left field, so you might not agree with it, but I think his tariffs are to prevent foreign trades, foreign products coming into our, um, not just coming into our country, but also preventing ours from leaving because they know that they're going to raise tariffs and taxes on ours, which then creates a stockpile of our own industries and our own resources in our own country, which would then, now, since we're not, let's just go with like alcohol. We're not sending out, like they're not sending alcohol to Canada anymore because Canada raised their tariffs on alcohol, on our alcohol. So now you're having our distilleries, our bourbon outfits, whatever, they are now filled to the brim with whiskey, with bourbon, with whatever. That in turn is going to lower prices at home because you have too much of the product and now you can't sell it. I'll put it in this sense, like the most layman is sense that I can put it. I managed a store for a while, retail, and we would sell sports items. And there were times where we would get just too too much of an item in, to where, yeah, we would sell a certain amount of it at the regular price, but then we were still left with a ton of it that just wasn't selling. Guess what we did to get rid of that particular item because nobody wanted to buy it? We dropped the price, 20, 30%, whatever it was. It's still where we would make money off the purchase, but it was lowered, and that was for the consumer, and you would sell more. And I know it might sound just completely far-fetched, but I think that's Trump and his people's thinking, is that they're going to raise these Trumps on, or raise these tariffs on these other countries because he knows that they will raise it on our products, which will cause a logjam of our own products in our own country, which would cause the price of our own products in our country to drop, in turn helping consumers in the United States. I could be completely wrong on this. Please let me know if I am, but I think that is the thought process on it. Is his is I well, we can't stop inflation because there just wouldn't be. I mean, the only way inflation I think is going to stop now is if you have another like recession or depression. So my thought process on this is why not have force these countries to raise their tariffs on our products to stop bringing them in to where they're just log jamming in our own country, that our own businesses have to drop prices, they are basically forced to drop prices to get rid of their products. And I think that's where I think that's where it's going. I could be wrong, but let's get over to what Gork said. So I asked him, are the tariffs Trump placed good for America? He goes, and this was the explanation: whether the tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump are good for America depends on what perspectives, priorities, and how one weighs the trade-offs involved. The tariffs in question, implemented as of March 18, 2025, include a 25% tariff on most goods from Canada and Mexico, with a lower 10% tariff on Canadian energy, and 10% additional tariff on Chinese goods, and a broader 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports from various countries. These build on tariffs from his first term, such as those on steel, aluminum, or aluminium, as our English brethren say, and Chinese products. Below, I'll break down the potential benefits and drawbacks based on the available evidence and economic reasoning. Let you decide if it's good or means this context. So, potential benefits: protecting domestic industries. Tariffs can shield American industries from foreign competition. For example, 25% tariff, steel tariffs from Trump's first term started in 2018, aimed to revive U.S. steel production. Some data suggests this worked to an extent. U.S. steel output increased slightly, and companies like U.S. Steel saw temporary boost. The White House has claimed that these tariffs strengthened the U.S. economy and led to a significant reshoring in manufacturing. Supporters argue this protects jobs in sectors like steel, where employment held steady around 140,000 despite global competition. National security leverage. Trump's administration ties tariffs to security goals like curbing illegal immigration and drug trafficking. The idea is that economic pressure on trading partners forces them to act. During his first term, tariff threats on Mexico reportedly sped up border security talks. The current 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico are framed similar. Stop the invasion of drugs. Yeah, of course, that is also a tactic that he might be using. Revenue generation. Tariffs bring in money for the U.S. Treasury. The fiscal year 2023, they generated about $80 billion. Peter Navarro, a Trump advisor, has highlighted this as a benefit, suggesting it offsets costs or funds priorities like tax cuts. If expanded, tariffs could theoretically raise more, though the exact amount depends on how imports respond. Reshoring and manufacturing. Trump argues tariffs encourage companies to move production back to the United States to avoid import taxes. I mean, that makes sense. While evidence from this, his first term is mixed. Some firms adjusted supply chains, but major reshoring was limited. The latest tariffs might push this further, especially with higher rates and broader coverage. I mean, look, if you're a multi-billion-dollar company and you're based in the United States, but you're working outside the United States and importing in, or if you're just from outside the United States and importing in, and you're a billion-dollar company, you're gonna find ways to get around stuff without it affecting you. That's just you don't become a billionaire of a company or run a company with without knowing the ins and outs of getting away with things or doing things. So let's look at the potential drawbacks. It says higher costs for consumers. So this might just blow my complete previous rant out of the water. Tariffs are paid by U.S. Importers, not foreign countries, and these costs often get passed to the consumer. Well, okay, so this goes in with them putting tariffs on us that it would okay. Yeah, the tax on the current tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China will cost the average U.S. household an average of $1,200 annually. First term examples back this up. Washing machine prices rose $86 per unit after a 50% tariff in 2018, costing consumers $1.5 billion extra yearly. With Canada, Mexico, and China supplying nearly half of the U.S. imports, over 1.3 trillion. Price hikes could hit everything from avocados to cars. Everybody in their avocados. Economic drag. Most economic studies suggest tariffs reduce growth. Well, yeah, because it causes it causes a backlog of your own product in your own country, and you can't grow, and so you cut your job force down. I mean, that's just one of the drawbacks of it, unfortunately, because your product's not moving. The Tax Foundation predicts the 25% tariffs on Canada. Let me push this button real quick. On Canada and Mexico will cut U.S. GDP by 0.2% long term. So 223,000 jobs and lower after-tax incomes by 0.6% before retaliation. 2019 study on the first Chinese tariffs found U.S. importers bore the full cost with no drop in Chinese export prices, implying American businesses and consumers took the hit. Retaliation amplifies this. China passed tariffs on U.S. farm exports cost $20 billion annually. Retaliation risk. Trading partners don't sit still. Canada have already signaled retaliatory tariffs. So yeah, again, this gets into them hitting tariffs against ours against theirs. That's part of what we already talked about. Mixed job impact. While tariffs aim to save jobs in protected sectors, the broader effect is murky. 2021 study found first-term China tariffs cost 240,000 job net loss as export industries farming offset gains elsewhere. Steel tariffs. Okay, so it's going in again the job loss, which would go into the tariffs. So it's basically just saying the same thing. The bigger picture, short term versus long term, tariffs might juice certain sectors briefly, say steel, but sustained costs and retaliation could erode gains. Economists like these at the University of Chicago and MIT found first-term tariffs didn't boost overall wealth or jobs significantly. Who pays the burden? Of course, middle-income households. Global context, Trump's tariffs buck decades of freer trade, risking supply chain chaos. North America auto products could see prices jump $2,700 per vehicle. Well, because they already aren't outrageous. I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen what new cars cost these days, but good Lord, basically driving a computer. What's uncertain? Well, Canada and Mexico curb drugs and migration. Okay, so we're getting into this. So are they good? If you value protecting specific industries and flexing muscle on security, you might lean yes. Tariff signal strength and can prop up some American workers. If you prioritize low, broad job growth and global cooperation, you'd lean no. The costs hit hard, and the wins are narrow. The evidence tilts towards tariffs being a net negativity economically, but politically, they're a win for Trump's base, which would be, I guess you would say, he's more MAGA people. You decide what matters most. And I want to ask, uh, would tariffs on other fat fingers lower the cost of home? It's gonna be like home goods, like of national. From other countries can, in theory, lower the cost of national domestic goods by making foreign products more expensive, thus okay, see, yeah, that's reducing competition for local producers. The idea is that if imported goods carry a higher price tag due to tariffs, consumers might turn to domestically produced alternatives, potentially increasing demand for national goods. This could give local industries a chance to thrive without the pressure of cheaper foreign imported undercutting them. Okay. However, it's not a straight shot to lower costs and national goods. Tariffs can lead to a higher overall prices in the economy. Imported goods cost more, and domestic products might raise prices too. No one they're shielded from foreign competition. That is very true. Production costs for national goods, labor, materials, extra, don't automatically drop just because tariffs go up. They might even raise the domestic supply chain, rely on imported components that now cost more. Plus, other countries might slap retaliatory tariffs on your exports, shrinking markets for your national goods, and potentially hurting domestic producers instead of helping them. Historic examples: the U.S. Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act in 1930 jacked up tariffs of over 20,000 imported goods to protect American industries during the Great Depression. Domestic producers got some breathing room, but overall trade tanked. Global prices spiked, and it arguably made the economic mess worse. Not a glowing endorsement for tariffs as a cost lowering miracle. So it might completely blow my rant earlier completely out of the water. We learning. So could tariffs lower the cost of national goods? Maybe indirectly by boosting demand for them, but it's a gamble. Often you end up with higher prices across the board, not lower. Depends on how the market shakes out, how producers react, and whether or not countries hit back. What specific scenario you're thinking about? What could narrow it down? Okay, so I mean that does make sense. I think there is some sort of validity as to what I was saying, as like if you don't have the crazy amounts of orders for a product that you normally would have, and they're just stuck in your warehouse, and you would have to lower prices to get rid of them. But at the same time, I do see what this is saying. Whereas if like yeah, you don't have the competition of maybe a foreign product, then you might not just lower your price anyway because you can see, well, if they want that good, then they're going to pay for it no matter what. But having said that, we live in a time period now where, and I'm just going to, I'll stick on alcohol, where there are microbreweries on every corner of every street. And if you don't like one price of one of the breweries you go to, there's going to be another that is undercutting the prices of that other brewery because they know that they don't want to be that expensive. And I'm saying this as we'll just use Jim Beam as an example. Let's say Jim Beam is sending a crap ton of alcohol to Canada, and Canada has now shut it down. We're not paying the tariffs. Now Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, whatever I said, All that stuff is just piling up in their warehouses. Would it be wise for them, Jack Daniels, to raise their prices going, well, I mean, there's no other Jack Daniels in America. We can do that. When you have Jim Beam, when you have all these other bourbons, when you have all these other whiskeys out there that can undercut your value in your own country. I mean, I get from a perspective of the 1930s how, yeah, if you cut off foreign imports on a specific thing, especially in those time periods where just there were not a lot of variety, you relied on a lot of imports. How, yeah, domestically, if there's only three beer companies in the country, then all three of them go, hey, we're jacking the prices up, baby, because you guys can't go anywhere else. But the fact that there's so many um not just opportunities, but so many um different spots you can go for different goods. I don't know if you're going to see. Will some places would they raise the prices? Yeah, of course. If you think you can get away with it, you can. But I think overall, you're not going to see a crazy spike in national goods because there's too much of a variety nationally. It's not like it was. But I do understand what this was saying regarding not black, wrong button, how it affects and how it could raise your prices. And that's one thing that you do have to look and take into effect. Um, I'm not one of these that is hardcore, yeah, Trump's doing the right thing. We all got to follow him. But I'm also not one of these that's, oh my God, he's destroying the country, hate him. It's one of those, you have to see the middle. You have to understand the pros and cons of it, and I guess make up your own mind as far as how it's affecting. And honestly, we won't know if these tariffs stay in place, we won't know for another couple months or maybe a year, depending. Um, and by that time, something might be worked out. But yeah, I think that's what he's playing at. I could be wrong. I think that's like I think a lot of it has to do with, yeah, he's trying to pressure them into the border stuff. I get that, whatever. But I think in his mind too, he thinks that this will lower prices at home wise, but who knows? Only time will tell. People take a deep breath, try to enjoy life, and let's not be too serious about things, right? Because man, some of y'all are just losing your goddamn minds out there, and it's just getting a little ridiculous. Hey, take a deep breath. Go outside, enjoy life, right? Find you some good earth and dig it, right? Check you later.